Hello and welcome to Campaign Diary 40/41. I'm going to cover both those sessions in this diary. It is time to break the barrier and get our party into what is essentially Book 2 of the Abomination Vaults as it was released originally. With the introduction of this next set of floors, these ones are more combined with each other. I'm going to try and push back into a more plot-heavy style of Abomination Vaults, try to pull us a little bit away from just clearing room after room after room. So with that in mind, I just wanted to do a quick recap at some of the plot hooks that are still floating around, still in the works, and not yet resolved. Obviously, we have the big one, Urevian and his deal with the party. They still owe him 2 favors. I haven't decided on what the second one will be, but those of you who have ran the game before probably know what the first of those favors is going to be. May has this book with an ancestor's spirit trapped within it, and that is going to lead to various different discussions about her history. Milo's dad is still a ghost somewhere in the Gauntlet, so that also has to be resolved at some point. Ornifex has received increasing pressure from Yog-Sothoth in the past to make sure that Nimbleoth does not inherit this part of the universe. Milo is carrying the filth of fever sickness, which is becoming increasingly disruptive as he's nearly died to it multiple times now. So that needs to be resolved and hopefully cured. Mermenhemmer's daughter is undergoing a bunch of nightmares at the moment. That needs to be looked into. And then we have Spook and Gorgon, who are relatively new and need some kind of backstory content initiating for them. I have ideas, but now is not really the best time, just based on how much we have going on already. But you can expect all of these plot points to get some kind of screen time in the upcoming arcs that I'll be preparing for our group. But this session we break the barrier. Having returned to the Gauntlet, the group decided that it'd be best to go speak to Atari's ghost again first, just to check what they need to actually do during this ritual. His ghost is still manifested, and as you arrive, it looks over with eagerness in its eyes. Have you found what you're looking for?
Yes, I think so.
I mean, it has been a while, but people in town said they thought these were the artifacts they're looking for. But do you want to just check?
He looks over the items and you see he sort of tears up a little bit as this look of recognition crosses his face. Oh yeah, those are them. Not seen them in a long time. They should do the trick.
And
Right.
how exactly? We just place them on the altar and they do its thing, or is there some accompanying ritual we need to perform?
If you place them on the altar, then we should be able to do the rest.
By we? Do you mean not glance down at the objects?
Aye, yeah. The rose card. What memories are left of us?
One final sacrifice for the cause, eh?
Yeah. And then I'll be on my way.
Do you have a preference with what we do with the objects afterwards? I know that the townspeople would like them to be returned. Are you okay with that?
Honestly, I'd prefer they be put to good use, but if the town keeps them safe and treats them with respect, then there's no harm with them having them. But it feels a shame to not have them out there still fighting the good fight.
Then we'll keep them. At least until we've purged this place.
He gives you a smile and a nod.
And what about you? I look down at his bones. Do you want us to take you out of here?
I think so.
Okay. Well, we'll wait for you to pass on, and then we'll gather you up and find you a proper place to rest in Atari.
Yeah, we'll give you a place of honor in the town named after you.
I'd like that. Well, good luck.
Thank you. And in case we don't see you again, good luck with whatever comes next.
He gives you all one last smile and then fades.
Aww.
They returned to the upper Nimbleoth temple. Hesitantly, they placed the 4 relics on the altar and waited for something to happen. They were very nervous about how this might work, being quite scared of receiving some kind of injury or there being a big explosion as the shield breaks. So they kept discussing whether to put them on and then run away, or how to engage with this ritual. The adventure itself actually gives very little guidance on what this ritual looks like. They don't really give any advice on how the ritual's supposed to go or what the ritual entails, leaving it mostly up to GM discretion to create what works for their group. I took this as an opportunity to both cement that this is a team, this is a group now, they're going to be working together for the foreseeable future, hopefully all surviving, but also as a chance to remind them that they are not free agents. You place the floor relics on the altar to Nimbaloth and wait with bated breath. At first, nothing happens, and you begin to worry that something is incorrect, but just as that doubt begins to stir, the cooperative blade begins to rattle and rises from the altar. Moments later, the spellbook, the brooch, and the thieves' tools also raise from the altar. Before your eyes, the spectral forms of the legendary Rose Guard stand, clasping their relics. One by one, they turn and hold the relics high. Each one sends a powerful beam of energy scorching down the hallway into the barrier, blocking your path forwards. You see the strain on the faces of the Rose Guard. Clearly, this is taking no small amount of effort. However, moments later, you hear a loud crack echo down the hallway. Then another, then a monstrous shattering, immediately followed by 1,000 wailing voices. And the barrier is gone. The Rose Guard turn to face you, relics in hand, and Vol Rajani steps forwards. Friends, thank you. The threat of Belcor cannot be ignored, nor underestimated. She was our threat to stop. Now she is yours. You have taken your first steps to saving all of the Isle of Kortos. The threats you find below will test you. We have faith that you will not falter. The task was ours, and now it is yours. So too should be the name that defeated her once. So I name you Roseward, successors of the Rose Guard. Each member of the Rose Guard looks at you warmly. The cleric closes her eyes, offers you a quick prayer, and fades away to eternal peace. The wizard goes into a deep bow, fading as he rises. Atari gives each of you a big grin and mouths, "Thank you," and then fades away with a look of bliss on his face. Lastly, Vol kneels on one knee, bows his head before rising. "Thank you, Rose." Oh! His voice cuts off with a choke as he's lifted off the ground by a red hand wrapping around the back of his neck. Vol dangles, flailing, as Urevian begins to chuckle. "Looks like I might not need you after all, Rose Warden." There's a crackle of volatile energy from around Vol's neck, where Urevian was grasping him, and a huge explosion of energy sends Urevian flying backwards across the room. He impacts the nearby wall, causing it to crumble with the impact, and Vol is dropped, fading as he clatters to the ground. By Urevian, you see one of the scrolls draped around his horns unravel and float into the air, and in his own booming voice, a portion of the contract is read out.
Contract 74233, Clause 97. Payment cannot be delivered by Urevian, Urevian's minions, or any ally of Belcora.
And then the contract rolls back around his horns. Urevian drags himself to his feet and just screams with fury, causing the entire temple to shake around you. And as the sound quiets, he straightens up, glares at you all. "Get to the fucking 7th floor and meet me in my office. I gotta fucking move on. I'm getting impatient." And with that, just as quickly as he had appeared, he is gone, and the room is silent. My goal with this scene was to provide a pretty major hint at what Urevian might want from our heroes. Or should I say, Rose Warden. I've been GMing for 15 years now, and not once have any of my groups ever come up with a team name. So I thought it'd be quite fun to present this to them and just see what it feels like to have a group that's got this unified identity. And since this is the Abomination Vaults and the Rose Guard have such a big important part in this story, I thought that honouring that with calling them the name Rose Warden would kind of feel nice, be a bit of a nod to the past, and kind of enforce the importance of what they're doing on the players. If anyone had tried to interfere when Urevian was trying to enact his plan, I did have a potential part 2 to this scene that would have been an overwhelming display of power, just to remind Rose Warden who's in charge. Luckily, that was not needed. Understandably, the newly dubbed Rose Warden were confused and shocked by what had just transpired.
Did he just try to snatch his soul right as he was about to leave this plane?
Did he just
mean-
say he has an office here?
Oh yeah, that too.
Wait, I'm confused. The contract, was that our contract? Was that a different contract?
You
I
guys
feel-
know him?
Oh yeah, that's the guy who... he's a devil. We may or may not have had dealings with him before.
With me? With we? You mean you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Milo, there's more than one.
Yeah, there's 2.
2 devils, 2 dealings.
2 dealings. But, I don't think that was my contract.
What did it say? Does anyone remember?
What's pertinent, I think, is that it kind of implied that he's an ally with Belcora. But maybe that's just my interpretation of it.
I think Belcora doesn't want anyone to have an office in here. Deep down below, in the lower levels of this thing, if they weren't allies. So
Yeah.
yes. I think he has been playing us pretty well.
Yeah.
But I mean, he
But we
said.
still have 2 favors to do for him.
He said he might not even need us when he tried to take him. So he wanted him all along.
And he used our new titles for the first time.
I'm not sure if that helps with anything.
No, but if a devil says it, then it's official.
Onifax makes that motion when you want to say something, but you just stop and close your mouth again.
Floor 7. What do we know? What's on the 7th floor?
Yeah, prison. I think he has an office in the prison ward section. Maybe Belcora hired a devil to be a warden. Wouldn't be the first time, right?
That's true. Maybe it means he's also locked in some way and can't leave properly.
Maybe him calling it an office is just him trying to be an alibi to prison cell.
But he seems to have an ability to not be in his prison cell that is not generally part of a prison cell's function.
Perhaps he just can't go far from it.
Could be bound to the place, like a spirit of some kind, or through contract. Oh, okay, so he can't claim the payment himself. It has to be given to him by the contractee.
Ah.
Does
So
that
his-
mean that guy had a deal with Eurevion as well?
That's what I'm thinking.
I wonder, in that case, if he was contracted to get the spirits of the Rose Guard, perhaps, or something like that? Trap their souls, or deliver their souls to Belcora? Or maybe it's just that one guy. And now, if we are the inheritors of their will, maybe it's our souls now.
They were so close to discovering the truth, but a few misinterpretations unfortunately kept them from discovering the truth here. But that's fine. It'll just make the reveal all the more juicy when it does come. Quite amusingly, even after all of this, Milo, May, and Ornifex did not tell Gorgon or Spook about the deal, and the fact that they are kind of technically signed into that deal now. Since the deal specified current or future members, they are liable to it. Meaning that Spook and Gorgon are part of a contract they have no knowledge of. A little shady from our OG members there. Still, the barrier was broken, and our party could descend. Now, since Abomination Vaults was originally released as 3 books with 3 authors, floors 5 to 7 are tonally quite different. One of the big changes is how accessible all of the floors are from the beginning. Since up until now, the adventure has been very clear that you're supposed to clear a floor, move on, clear a floor, move on. I decided to have an above-board conversation with the players. I have made some changes to these 3 floors based on the story that we've had so far. I didn't tell the players all of this due to spoilers, obviously, but let me run you guys through what I've done. Firstly, the 7th floor is going to be a safe location for our players, for as long as they remain contracted to Eurevion. Well, the areas that the devils control, at least. That means there are now shops on that floor. places to rest, potential allies. Second, I split the 3 floors into 3 major factions. Erevian's army is known as the Infernal Legion. They control the prison floor. The Sagathi now make up a faction called the Writhing Craftsmen. Unlike in the base adventure, the Infernal Legion and the Writhing Craftsmen never stopped their war. They are, to this day, actively hostile to each other. This is important, it'll come up in this episode. The third faction is the Darkland Denizens, which makes up for every named NPC that hasn't got a specific affiliation. These guys are mostly here to receive upgrades from the Writhing Craftsmen, so they kind of align more towards them, but they all have their own goals, their own motivations, and their own allegiances. The third major change is a little bit of a rebalance in terms of the combat. I've made it so that each of these 3 floors has some higher and some lower difficulty encounters, and the majority of NPCs are not going to be hostile on sight. Some still will be, but I wanted these 3 floors to feel more like a sinister city of dangerous factions and not like 3 floors of just random monsters. As for what I told my players, I basically said that you don't need to approach this floor by floor. They can move around across the 3 floors as they will, and they'll find reasonable and difficult threats across all 3 areas. Having said that, this is still the Gauntlet, and they did not receive a warm welcome as they headed down the stairs. Quite the opposite, in fact. As they descended the staircase, they were immediately set upon by the failed and abandoned offcasts of the Writhing Craftsmen. A crumbling staircase leads to a cracked and badly stained mosaic tile floor. To the south, a walkway encircles a round gaping pit, leading into a spiral staircase that clings to the edge of the pit. A twisted iron banister follows the edge of the walkway and the stairs. The acrid smell of chemicals and rot, with just a tinge of sulfur, wafts from the pit's darkness. Strange moaning echoes up the shaft. This battle set the tone quite nicely for what is to come. 2 Grothlet, creatures that they have encountered before, assaulted the group as they came down the stairs. As party level -2 creatures, they didn't pose that much of a threat to our party. However, during the second round, a gibbering mouther climbed up from the floor below along the staircase. The Grothlet did their job and sickened the party, but this didn't stop them from getting totally battered by our heroes. While it didn't stop them from hitting, it did mean a few of the Rose Warden wasted turns trying to clear that sickened condition. Quite rarely for Gorgon, when one of the Grothlets attacked Milo and he used his Glimpse of Redemption, the creature actually repented. While this wasn't a good tactical choice for the Grotlet, I felt that with these being failed flesh warps and previously humanoid creatures, it felt on theme, and it made Gorgon feel pretty good. Still, they dealt a tiny bit of damage, and by the end of the first round, they were both nearly dead. That is when the gibbering mouther showed up. Luckily for our heroes, it needed its entire turn moving towards them, but they were now in range of its gibbering. Gorgon, upon seeing that these creatures are capable of repenting, switched to non-lethal damage, but he failed to finish the creature off. Meanwhile, May became crazed due to the gibbering and launched into a flurry of attacks against Ornifex, smacking her in the back of the head. Spook managed to kill the first of the Grotlet, causing it to explode in an acidy spray, which impacted the entire party and the gibbering mouther. In contrast to the near TPK that this ability caused last time, this time the party rolled really well and most people avoided the damage and the sickened. Side note, I do really like how in Pathfinder 2nd edition, players feel like they absolutely, undeniably outgrow previous threats. It's cool to see a monster go from a deadly runaway encounter to an inconvenience. Milo also fell to the confusion of gibbering, but luckily, when randomly determining which creature he was going to attack, he ended up going for the Grothlet. Unfortunately, this killed the Grothlet, causing a second acid explosion. He finished up his turn by flailing harmlessly against Gorgon's shield. By the end of the second round, both the Grothlet were dead, leaving just the gibbering mouther. The mouther sprayed Spook with spittle and then crawled into the center of the group, trying to make sure that its madness was spreading as wide as it could. With May passing the save against the confusion this time, the group began ripping into the gibbering mouther. May grappled the creature, holding it in place while the rest of the party wailed on it, trying to bring it down as quickly as possible. Well, with the exception of Milo, who remained confused and attacked Gorgon, hitting and then critting on both of his multi-attack penalty attacks thanks to natural 20s. Why do my players only roll like this when they're fighting each other? The gibbering mouther crit May, dealing a large amount of damage and causing a nasty bleed, and then it reversed the grapple on May. Ornifex began healing, starting with Spook. Meanwhile, everybody gave Milo a bit of a wide berth and continued to attack the mouther. Milo was a walking plague at this point, with sickened 4, meaning he was very susceptible to the mouther and continued to be confused. He chased and hacked into Spook. The gibbering mouther tried to join in this assault on Spook, but missed all of its attacks. And then, finally, Ornifex was able to kill the monster. This encounter proved, once again, that the biggest threat to my party is each other. I think this was a really good introductory fight to this floor, though. It shows the themes of aberrations and flesh warps. It was something familiar but in a new situation, and it showed how open the floors are, that things can travel mid-combat between the various different floors. The party had taken a fair amount of damage, mostly from each other, so they took the time to heal up. There was so much to explore here, so many directions they could go in. They began with the eastern door, a choice that resulted in arguably the most chaotic fight we've had in Pathfinder. Rusted iron chains hang from the ceiling of this room, each ending in an oversized manacle. The octagonal eastern end of the room contains a circular pit covered by a rusted iron grate. Torn bolts and scrap metal dangle from the ceiling above the pit. Piles of scrap fill the 4 alcoves that open off the wide hall that constitutes the room's west end. Inside this room is the lovely Kratonis, who is quite insane. This is the perfect example of an NPC who has a bunch of cool backstory, but literally no way to express it. As they specifically state, she has gone feral and lost all sense of purpose. She doesn't speak or respond to any who try to communicate with her, but lashes out in a desire to inflict pain. Which is a shame, because her backstory is that she's the sister of the last Velstrak they fought, and has been bound to this floor by Belcora for reasons. There is a lot to learn about her, but no way to learn it. As soon as Gorgon opened the door, Kratonis screamed and just lunged forwards. I know she's supposed to stay in the chained portion of the room, but I also know Gorgon. And right on cue, he closed the door. So, as the party panicked and began yelling at Gorgon that closing the door never works, she was sprinting across the room, dodging the fragile grate, and smashed into the door, knocking it open. Gorgon thought about bracing the door, but instead May shoved him to the side, scared that in trying to brace the door he would be knocked over the barrier and take that 80-foot fall down the shaft, which is smart thinking from May. Sadly, while feral, she still knows the best ways to inflict pain, and Kratonis repositioned Gorgon right over the barrier. Gorgon attempted to grab an edge, but since he had a sword in one hand, a shield in the other, he needed a critical success, and he did not get one. Gorgon fell 80 feet, smashing hard on the ground all the way down on the prison layer. This loud impact caught the attention of a bearded devil that was in the process of training some Grothlet. It marched towards Gorgon, who stood up and fled back up the staircase. This only amplified his problems as he immediately ran into some weird worm-like creature that was holding a knife and guarding a doorway. It began screaming in his head in some kind of strange alien language. Meanwhile, the rest of the party now had to deal with the crazed Kratonis without their tank. Spook began cutting into her, dealing really good damage, and the party began to outpace that healing with the amount of damage they could deal to her. In the last fight, though, it had been Gorgon that had deactivated the healing with a Holy Strike, and he was not in a position to help do that. Ornifex wanted to go check on Gorgon, so using her new fly speed, she flew down the hollow shaft and landed next to Gorgon, eyeing down the Sagathi and the Grothlet. Kratonis began slashing into the remaining Rose Warden, causing bleeding and dealing a lot of damage, and their cleric had just left. Below, the bearded devil had chased Gorgon up the stairs, and now he and Ornifex were pinned. Devil behind them, Sagathi in front of them. However, then something happened that they did not expect. The two creatures noticed each other and began screaming insults in different languages. Then, the devil teleported across the gap and began carving into the Sagathi with its glaive. Apparently there was a lot of bad blood between these two creatures, but that kind of just confused things more for Gorgon and Ornifex. The rest of Rose Warden continued their attack against Kratonis, dealing and taking large amounts of damage. Gorgon, wanting to make progress and get back to help, moved up behind the Grothlet and repositioned it into the hole. It fell, splattering wetly against the ground. Ornifex began to realize that those above might need her healing a little more right now, so she cast heal on Gorgon and prepared to fly up to those higher floors again. Above, Milo wanted to help out his friends, so he moved in to start attacking Kratonis. Unfortunately, what they don't really mention about certain diseases is that they end up making you more susceptible to other diseases. You need to make a fortitude saving throw.
Great. The plague even helped me.
Okay.
Oh no.
I gotta get another disease.
I'm starting to get the feeling that maybe Milo's mum was an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's a good one.
Alright, Milo. In
Oh my
4 days,
god.
you will get tetanus. I hope you live long enough to see the tetanus.
Wait, when you said tetanus, I thought you were joking. It's actually tetanus.
It's actually tetanus. Crotonus was getting pretty hurt, but her healing was keeping her in the fight. Below, Gorgon was facing a test of morals. This worm-like creature had not attacked him and was now close to death at the hands of the devil. Gorgon ran up behind the devil and tried to reposition that into the hole. However, a critical failure meant that, well, it's probably easier if I just show you the clip. Gorgon, you move up behind this fiend, grab them by their shoulders, and try to slide them off. But in an instant, they swing their glaive around, hook the bottom end of it underneath your legs, and flip you entirely over the banister. And you start to fall again, but you are caught by this like sudden, quite rough impact. You see no one like physically holding you, but you're almost suspended in midair. And you float back up and slam back down where you were. You take about 5 points of damage from just the impact of getting thrown back down. And then both of like Ornifex and Gorgon sort of looking down over the edge, you see Arevian walking down to the middle of this pit. He puts his foot on the head of the Grothlet and just crushes it, and then looks up at you both. And you see this absolute fucking look of disappointment in both of you. And then he moves his eyes to the devil. These two are the people I was telling you to look out for. Please avoid killing them. And then he sort of lets out this long sigh, turns around and just walks away, back out of sight towards the west. The devil that flipped you over the edge gives you a glance, a little bit of like a it's your lucky day kind of glance, and then turns back towards the worm and continues to fight. Absolute chaos. Gorgon wasn't done though. He really wanted to save that worm, so he made a plea for its life.
Okay, this is not gonna work out, but could I try to convince them to just... Guys, can we take a pause and just figure out what's going on here?
Make a diplomacy check.
Just let the fiend kill the worm.
You say this out loud as they're fighting, and the devil, like, as he's like trying to slowly saw the head off the worm, he's like, he doesn't fucking understand you, and just keeps like cutting through. Ornifex returned to the rest of the group at this point, where they were desperately trying to figure out how to keep Crotonus down. They were trying to do the math of if the fall damage from throwing her in the pit would finish her off. And after a few more hits, May flipped her over the banister. Man, this pit is getting way more use than I thought it would. And she fell a short distance before exploding in an eruption of a lightning energy, and Crotonus vanished. Back in the room she had originally emerged from, she reappeared, heavily dazed. I took a full round of actions off her to sort of show the trauma of being forcibly teleported back to this location by Belcora's curse. She falls about 10 feet.
Wait, what?
And then midair, there's like an explosion of electric energy. And Spook, you see her reappear over here on the ground, like looking all sort of charred and very dazed, totally fucking out of it.
Ooh, a prisoner spell maybe.
In the devil versus worm duel, the devil missed its chance to finish off the Sagathi, and the worm pulled out a wand, cast invisibility on itself, and disappeared through the doors. The devil, breathing heavily, stepped aside and begrudgingly let Gorgon pass to continue his journey back to his friends. Meanwhile, Spook dashed after Crotonus, eager to put her down before she could heal all that health back. But he didn't see the fragile grate, and it collapsed underneath his weight. He did make a successful grab and edge check, but he was still clobbered by the crane structure collapsing down on top of it. However, with the group reunited, they chased down Crotonus, and as a team, finally put her down. This had been a very chaotic battle, but had kind of helped showcase some of what I'd been talking about with the party. They now knew they could simply walk down to the 7th floor and meet with Erevian whenever they like. They knew that there were seemingly multiple factions, and that they were hostile to each other. They knew that Erevian was at least keeping the devils off their backs, and they knew that these floors are seemingly very interconnected. Everyone was pretty roughed up after this fight, so as Ornifex began healing, Gorgon explained what he had seen below. This obviously left them with quite a few questions.
So you're telling us we should go down there and talk to him right away?
I'm not quite sure if we should go right away with him. I also think he's really impatient. Like, really impatient.
Yeah, and I mean, we gotta serve the master.
Do you have any idea what he wants?
I think he just wants us to be quicker with our tasks in general.
Well, I mean, he might want us to do something. We do have favors owed.
I mean, while you were here, was there any... Oh yeah, there are plenty of doors here to see.
Maybe we just check out these few doors, make sure that nothing else is gonna, push us down a big hole when we look at Gorgon. And then maybe we go down?
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm also curious about this worm with a knife. Did he seem like he wanted to help?
He was talking, but we could not understand. Neither could the devil that assisted us. So I'm not sure, but waving a knife at us, a little bit threatening.
True.
But the most curious thing, though, was that behind him it sounded like there's playing music.
Oh.
Music.
A loud concert, with guitars and everything.
Maybe we should go there.
I mean, that's really out of place, right? Like, of all the things to hear.
Maybe he was like a bouncer, checking... I don't know, we have concert cards or so.
Very strange.
Just an FYI, the Fugis, the reactive images, they break throughout the rest of this session, so they are entirely unreliable and will not be working. The website was having some kind of weird server issues. Sorry about that. Rosewarden decided to put off speaking to Erevian for as long as they could. They headed through the northern doors and entered the abandoned monster holding room. 3 cells lined the south wall, their bars only a few inches apart. Each cell contains a heap of rotted flesh and shattered bone. Our heroes were very put off by the flesh puddles, so they were about to leave, but the glint of a copper key in the middle cell kept their attention. Spook lockpicked his way in, but in doing so, caused the 3 piles of flesh to rise up and attack. These were Sanregol Hebes, discarded failed attempts at flesh warping that were some kind of disturbing mix between an undead and an aberration. Surging forward, they melted through the bars, eager to reach and attack our heroes. This fight, while not being particularly difficult, was actually really well thought out by our players. They used recall knowledge to learn about the enemy and act on that information. Milo got to use his Slayer's Strike, dealing massive amounts of damage. They flanked. May used her Shielded Arm spell. They also crit a bunch, which is always hype as hell. Honestly, it was really cool to see them using their stuff well. They felt very professional. And by the end of the 3rd round, all the Sanregol were dead. They grabbed the key, found that it had no markings to identify what door it's for, and stashed it. After walking around the hallways for a little bit, trying to get their bearings, they began to discuss whether they should go see Erevian yet.
This seems like a lot to explore. Do we maybe go down the spiral staircase and see what that guy wanted?
You mean our demonic overlord?
Yeah, I mean, he told us to hurry down there, right? And I feel like if we keep exploring up here, he's going to just get mad.
Yeah, I was really hoping we could procrastinate on that one.
Probably wouldn't mind checking out some more doors, right?
Yeah, maybe just we don't go too far. He might be able to tell us what's up here.
Yeah, that's true.
I doubt he would unless it would actually help us to, fulfill his wish.
Yeah, he isn't the most helpful guy. Or actually he is, and that's the problem.
Maybe we look in these doors and see from there?
Yeah.
They decided to put it off a little bit more and went into the surgical suite instead. Lanterns hanging from the ceiling shine bright circles of light over 3 stone tables topped with metal slabs. A single lightweight chain dangles near each table. The remnants of a dead Morlock lies on one slab. Dried splatters of blood cover the walls, floor, and ceiling. Within this room is a Spectre, a single party-level +2 creature that I had messed with a little bit. I had lowered its AC a bit and then increased its hit points to account for the extra player. I also fully ignored the quickened that it had. I did have 2 elite Wailing Ghosts in reserve waiting in case this fight became too easy. It did not become too easy. As Rosewarden began poking around at the table and the corpse, the Spectre attacked. It moved quickly, grabbing Milo by the face and critically hitting him. He was nearly taken out in an instant, but instead of finishing him off, the Spectre used spectral corruption and seized control of his mind. A critical failure meant that Milo was controlled for as long as it would take him to make a successful save. The order given to him was to keep his friends from leaving. Through possession, confusion, and now straight up mind control, turning the party against each other seems to be the most dangerous weapon the creatures of the Gauntlet can possess. And this fight certainly proved that. Spook was the first to try and put the Spectre down, but this was going to be the first instance of something I had pre-warned him about: precision immunity. I did tell the player how bad precision immunity was going to get, but he was adamant that he wanted to play a swashbuckler, and I allowed him to do so. So, even though he hit pretty reliably, he was dealing really bad damage compared to what he was used to. As the party jumped into action, striking at the Spectre, often dealing resisted damage, Milo sprinted forwards and grappled May. He was successful and held her in place, but then he tried to reposition her. May was a pretty poor choice for this, as he critically failed, and May flipped him over the table in response, breaking the grapple through forced movement. The Spectre screamed, activating its frightful presence. I know that this is actually a passive thing that's always active, but I had forgotten about it up until this first turn, so this felt like a cool way of activating that ability. It then turned on Spook, damaging him and controlling him. Spook only failed though, not critically failed, so he would be controlled for 1 round. And that's lucky, because his orders had been to kill Gorgon, who had been using Glimpse of Redemption very successfully and pissing off the Spectre. After nimbly dodging through the crowd and stabbing Gorgon, Spook's senses returned to him, and he was no longer controlled, though he was stupefied too. May, ever the self-preservationist, had seen enough and determined that this needed to be a retreat. But they obviously couldn't leave without Milo, so she punched him in the head, knocking him out cold and dragging him to the doorway. As May, Ornifex, and Milo stood at the doorway, the Spectre gained Gorgon under its control. Just for 1 round though. It then chased after the fleeing heroes. The remaining sane heroes tried to fight off the Spectre, but made little progress. Then Ornifex hit the area with a 3-action heal. While this did provide some much needed healing and hurt the Spectre, it also returned the controlled Milo to consciousness. He crawled back to his feet, lunged at Ornifex, grappled her, and headbutted her. It was at this moment that the control finally broke on Milo, and he returned to his senses, almost jolting himself awake with the headbutt. Despite her nervousness, May began to deal pretty reliable damage, especially thanks to Flurry allowing her to combine damage before applying resistance. Gorgon ran up behind Spook, slamming him to the ground and then slashing into him, but then he was no longer controlled. The Spectre, seeing May as the new threat, lashed out and crit her. Luckily, as an incorporeal undead, the Spectre falls under May's jurisdiction as an exorcist, and she used her Spirit's Mercy reaction to take reduced damage. However, she was still controlled for 1 round. Milo, now able to act on his own free will, ran away from the main group to collect his stuff. Ornifex blasted the area with another 3-action heal, just before May grabbed her and held her in place. As the party kept up small but regular attacks, the Spectre moved up to the one person that he hadn't controlled yet. He struck at Ornifex, dealing damage, but she was able to resist the controlled. From this point, it kind of just became an all-out brawl. The plan to leave fell away to constant, desperate attacks. Damage was taken on both sides, people were controlled, but eventually, after over an hour of combat...
Oh my god!
Oh,
Ornifex,
man.
how do you kill the
Yes!
Spectre?
Oh my god, I want to shoot through his chest, and I want him to notice that like his rib cage is completely broken and his spine is shattered.
Okay.
He falls and crumbles in it.
You blast a beam of holy energy over Spook's head. Gorgon ducks underneath it and it smashes through the chest of the skeleton creature, blasting it away. And as it looks down, it looks up and glares at you. It looks as though it's about to lunge for you, but collapses, scattering across the room, very dead. May quickly collected the spirit's remnant, securing a level 7 spirit for her next exorcist ability. And the party enjoyed some well-earned loot. Since the Abomination Vaults is a little light on permanent items, and our heroes have spent the majority of their gold on consumables, they've fallen pretty far behind the treasure curve, particularly for permanent items. I've made a pretty substantial effort on these 3 floors to fix that and provide them with a good amount of loot. So on the corpse of the Spectre's original body, they found some +1 plate armor, which Gorgon took, They found a blood drinker blade, which Milo took. They found a belt of good health, which Ornifex took, and they found a retrieval prism. They also identified Atari's dagger of venom and gave that to Spook. They decided that now would be a great time to return home, so they headed back to Atari to get some well-earned rest. However, this meant it would soon be time for another disease check for poor Milo. They gave him more anti-plague. Ornifex took the 8 hours to treat disease, and then they sent him to bed, and...
Oh god, this is so
Got
scary.
plus 13.
Yes. That is a failure. So you can hero point this if you want to.
Yeah. Let's see here. But that automatically makes me use the new one, right?
You have to
Yeah.
use the new one if you hero point. At the moment,
If
you're
it becomes a
stage
critical failure,
2. You'll be
I become
unconscious.
unconscious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
At the moment, this is going to make you slowed for like until you get rid of it.
Yeah.
Which is 2 actions, which is basically out of action for exploring.
Yeah.
And you do have to eventually cleanse this.
Yep. No, I'm gonna do it.
Oh my god.
Please.
Okay.
Okay, to stage 3 then. Milo's filth fever progressed, making him permanently slowed, which is really not where you want to be when dungeon crawling. They decided that this disease had to be dealt with by any means necessary. So they vowed that in the morning, they would return to the Gauntlet and they would find anybody that could help them. Anyone who could save Milo's life. And I can think of just the person. That is it for this campaign diary. Thank you so much for watching. I'm making a conscious effort to scale up the amount of plot, the amount of story, the amount of drama, and cut back the amount of sessions and the amount of campaign diaries that are just straight up combat. That's why I merged session 41 at the end there, because that was just all out fights into this campaign diary. And I'll be doing similar things going forwards. If there's a session that ends up being pure combat, I'll squeeze it into a more drama-filled episode where I have a bit more to talk about. When this comes out, we will have just actually passed the 2-year anniversary of us playing this game, which is wild to think about. It does not feel like it's been 2 years. We play every other week, so that is why we are still going with the Abomination Vaults. I'm sure if we played weekly, we'd be a little further through than we are. But it's been so nice playing Pathfinder. It's been so nice playing this story with this group. And I figured it would be really fun to go through some reviews from the players. I asked them to write up a little quick review just about how they feel like things have gone recently with the Abomination Vaults and with Pathfinder as well. So I'm just going to read through some of these for you guys to hear. So Milo says, all in all, the experience has been very nice. I've thoroughly enjoyed a good old dungeon crawl up to this point. Despite the dungeon crawling focus the module clearly has had, we've had our fair share of roleplay intermingled with it. I really appreciate the way you've managed to integrate Milo's rudimentary backstory to such a degree that now he is thoroughly invested in resolving the Gauntlet issue, even if it's the last thing he ever does. The actual Gauntlet itself is a great setting, nothing extraordinary, nothing overly fancy, a spooky ruin in a swamp. But hey, you know what? It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. I find usually a well-designed trope often hits better than an overcomplicated original. So a very positive review from Milo. Gorgon hasn't been with us for the entirety of this adventure, so he's coming in with a bit of a skewed, not fleshed out view of the story so far, but I see what he has to say. It took some time to get comfortable with Pathfinder 2e, especially after playing 5th edition, but it's been a fun, refreshing change. The group is fantastic, everyone is welcoming and dedicated. It's not super common to see a tabletop group survive this long, but I can see why this one has. Very impressed with your DMing. Your preparation and consistency is really something I appreciate. Really dig how much of you is in the campaign. That's very, very kind. Love the challenge compared to my previous D&D campaign. It always feels like we're a few bad rolls away from disaster. There is a great mix of serious and lightheartedness. I enjoy when there is room for both. I prefer the spooky theme of this campaign, as I'm kind of tired of the Lord of the Rings-like campaigns, and the Gauntlet has been a breath of fresh air. I need a breath of drink. I should have made a more basic character in retrospect. It sounded fun in my head to do a My Name is Earl character, but not knowing the group dynamic and not being comfortable with new people yet, it just kind of fell flat. I'm not sure I agree with that. I've enjoyed the list of things for him to try and clear. It's given me some ideas as a GM. I'm slowly finding my footing with who Gorgon is going to be without rewriting what has been established so far, but it needs more work. I love how you weave character backstories into the campaign. Most GMs I've played with have not really bothered for the most part with their players' backstories. Neither here nor there, but it genuinely surprised me how good it feels to cross items off Gorgon's list. I feel like it would. Balance of roleplay, exploration, and combat feels spot on. Combat is tense in a good way, and there's a sensation of often standing with one foot in the grave. I feel like there's genuine collaboration within the group while everybody still stays true to the character they have created. Which I think is definitely credit to Pathfinder for forcing that kind of teamwork to make sure the fights go your way. Lastly, I have a review from Ornifex's player. This is her first time playing a long-term tabletop RPG, so it might be a fun, unique perspective. The story is fun. I like the setup. It seems straightforward enough, but with a few spicy twists that I enjoyed, like the devil appearing and us finding out about our eldritch god, maybe making an unexpected comeback thanks to Belcora. I am unsure about the flaw X is the flaw of Y thing. Knowing how deep it goes was cool to find out, but knowing what each flaw is titled beforehand gives a bit of a spooky shopping mall vibe and takes away from the mystery. That's fair. I do kind of regret that reveal. The big reveal of the Atari 5, I think she means Rose Warden, holding the barrier the whole time felt a bit wasted on me personally. I felt like I never heard of them beforehand. Sorry if I did but forgot. They have been mentioned. They have been mentioned in the past, but it's easy enough to forget about them. We've been playing for 2 years. So if I had to improve one thing in the first big arc, it would be to add a section for them or make people very patriotic for their heroes. That is a good idea. I think if you're going to do this the way I did it, where it's very Rose Guard heavy barrier breaking, have people talk about them more often. That said, I still enjoy myself, but I'm also aware of my favorite moments were thanks to you working your GM magic. And yes, number 1 is still becoming the Holy Burb arc. That's fair, you know, I feel like it's fair for a player to like their custom stuff the most. It makes sense, it feels personal. Biggest regret is having lost Rock before he could be reunited with his loved one. That's true, I need to deal with her. She's still about in Atari somewhere. Rin still takes the cake as favourite character, but other characters met in the vaults are really fun to encounter too, even when only brief. Baby boy Mimnivix stays my personal favourite here. He's just a silly guy. Oh, it's such a shame they killed him. As for combat, I can see why the villagers don't go in there. The encounters are usually quite rough, and it's hard to tell when to be more generous with spells and consumables. We had so many tight fights that I worry every fight could be our last. But being too hesitant also feels bad due to the time pressure we have. Our group does feel like we have the spectrum of Milo and Gorgon love how hard it is, May and Ornifex could maybe enjoy a little bit or more of a chiller time. As for the map design, I like it overall. Knowing we can clear floor by floor gave it sort of a video game aspect. Finding all the ways down or suddenly up again and the hidden rooms is fun. The only thing I wish there was more of are these rooms where you have to find a solution one way or the other. I think she might mean haunts with them. Falling and climbing also does not seem to be valuable anymore. I hope environmental activities will become a thing again. I don't think they do. And it's a fair point. Maybe on the bottom 3 floors, because it's like a big cavern system, but I don't think it is. Having a faction of enemy type per floor is nice for combat, but I wish it was more varied from time to time. Absolutely valid. Atari is nice, though I think having your healers at the edge of town seems quite inefficient. I guess that means the druids. Technically, Vandy in the library is a healer, but I guess she's also on the outside of town. So yeah, overall some really nice words from our players there. Next time, we're going to deal with Milo's disease, one way or another. So be ready for that. If you have enjoyed this video or the series, then please like, comment, subscribe. That is the best way that you can support right now. That's it for this one. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.